Iran has declared its intention to target Israel's Dimona nuclear facility. High-ranking Iranian officials have been killed in alleged U.S.-Israeli airstrikes. The state of U.S.-Iranian missile arsenals, music, and their impact on the military landscape are examined. Ankara urgently conveys its objections regarding an Iranian missile directed towards Turkish airspace. Ukraine has announced, music, the destruction of a Russian S-400 system in Belgorod. Greetings, viewers, and welcome to our international news program on YouTube. Tensions in the Middle East continue to escalate, as Iranian state media quotes a high-ranking military official asserting that Iran will not hesitate to attack Israel's Dimona nuclear facility. This is considered Tehran's strongest warning yet, amidst allegations that the U.S. and Israel are seeking to orchestrate regime change in the Islamic Republic. Furthermore, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Bakai has accused the European Union of blatant hypocrisy and double standards regarding Tehran's actions in the region. This reaction came shortly after the EU's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas posted on social media platform X that Iran is sowing chaos and indiscriminately attacking neighboring countries. Kallas also alluded to a scenario where a democratic Iran would pose less of a threat while acknowledging the country's unpredictable future. Responding to criticism from Brussels, Bakai asserted that the EU has lost its moral and political compass by deliberately ignoring and failing to condemn attacks on Iranian territory. Iran's statement reveals a deep rift not only with the U.S. but also with major European powers. Experts assess that Tehran's decision to target the Dimona nuclear facility is an extremely risky move that could plunge the region into a full-scale war with unforeseen consequences. As of date redacted, the political and military situation in Iran is in an unprecedented state of turmoil following a series of intensive airstrikes by the U.S. and Israel that began on date redacted. According to confirmed reports from Iranian media, a number of high-ranking officials and key generals have been killed in these attacks. Music. Among the casualties, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, along with several family members including his daughter, grandchildren, and music son-in-law, have been confirmed dead in the airstrikes that occurred in under a minute. The list of high-ranking leaders confirmed dead includes Music Defense Minister Ain Assad, Army Chief of Staff Abdul Rahim Musavi, Commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Major General Music Mohammed Peep, Secretary of the National Defense Council Ali Sam Khani, Commander-in-Chief of the Iranian Army, Major General Amir Mitamir, and the head of the National Police Intelligence Music Department Gholam Rayan, and former Iranian President Mahmoud Ainsa. Meanwhile, the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, stated that they have killed 40 key Iranian military commanders, music, in the opening attacks on date redacted. These figures were also reported by Western media as having been killed, including the head of the Supreme Leader's military office, Mohammad Srazi, the director of Iran's Defense Innovation and Research Organization, Hossein Jabba Amelian, former SPD director and former Deputy Defense Minister Rhea Mozaffari Nia, music, and the intelligence leader of the Emergency Command. However, these cases have not been confirmed by Iran. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, reported that an F-35I fighter jet from the Israeli Air Force, EAF, shot down an Iranian IC-130 aircraft over Tehran. According to the IDF, this marks the first time in history that an F-35 fighter has shot down a manned aircraft. The event also marks the first time in approximately 40 years that the Israeli Air Force has engaged in air-to-air combat with a manned aircraft. The last time Israeli fighters shot down a manned military aircraft was on November 24, 1985, over Lebanese airspace when an Israeli F-15 fighter shot down 2 Syrian MiG-23 aircraft. Experts note that Iran possesses one of the most diverse arsenals in the Middle East, ranging from several hundred to several thousand units, including short and medium-range ballistic missiles, ground-attack cruise missiles, and anti-ship systems. The short-range category, Iran deploys a large number of solid-fueled ballistic missiles optimized for rapid launch and high maneuverability, such as the Fateh 110 and Fajr 313 series. In addition, the Sejil 1 and Sejil 2 models have been improved to enhance accuracy. The medium-range category, Iran's missile arsenal significantly expands its strategic reach. The Sahaba continues to be a mainstay. The Ahmad and Ghadir 1 models are under development or nearing completion. Regarding cruise missiles, Iran adds another dimension to its operational capabilities through terrain-hugging flight paths at low altitudes. Several missile types, such as the Ya Ali, Rad, Musix, Sumar, have terrain-following capabilities, enhancing their ability to counter access denial at sea. The combination of ballistic and cruise missiles forces defensive systems to handle both high and low-flying targets simultaneously. Conversely, the United States deploys numerous advanced high-tech weapons. Noteworthy is the Music F-35C stealth fighter operating from the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, in conjunction with the Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missile, which is capable of accurately striking mobile targets from a long distance. In particular, the appearance of the PRSM mid-range hypersonic missile with its superior speed is seen as a game-changer, posing a major challenge to Iran's interception capabilities. According to observers, while Iran maintains an advantage in terms of missile quantity and diversity, the United States still holds a dominant advantage in terms of music technology, precision strike capabilities, and the ability to neutralize the enemy from the outset, music of a conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, NATO has condemned the targeting of Turkey after the military alliance shot down an Iranian ballistic missile heading towards the airspace of a member state for the first time since the Middle East conflict began. Turkish media reported on date redacted, local time, that following the incident, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, quickly expressed its support for its member. NATO's spokesperson, Alison H., stated, "We condemn Iran's targeting of Turkey and affirm that the military alliance stands firmly alongside all allies, including Turkey, as Iran continues its indiscriminate attacks across the region." However, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated at a Pentagon press briefing on date redacted that he had no indication that this incident would trigger Article 5, NATO's Collective Defense Clause, which considers an attack on one member as an attack on the entire alliance. For its part, Ankara also shows no sign of wanting to invoke this clause, instead emphasizing restraint and diplomacy. According to Al Monitor, Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan called his Iranian counterpart, Abbas Araghchi, to formally protest the missile launch and warn that any steps that could widen the conflict should be avoided. Subsequently, the Iranian ambassador to Ankara, Mohammad Hassan Habibulahzadeh, was summoned to the Turkish Foreign Ministry to receive a direct protest. Meanwhile, the Turkish Ministry of National Defense used a tougher tone in a written statement, emphasizing that Turkey will defend its territory and airspace resolutely and without hesitation, and reserves the right to respond to any hostile actions, regardless of their origin. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan called his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi to protest an Iranian ballistic missile that was intercepted while flying towards Turkish airspace, urging Tehran to refrain from steps that could further escalate the conflict in the region. Turkish media reported on date redacted local time that Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan called his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi to convey Ankara's message of protest regarding the Iranian missile aimed at Turkish airspace. According to Turkish Foreign Ministry sources, Minister Fidan had a telephone conversation with his Iranian counterpart Araghchi, and Fidan conveyed Ankara's reaction regarding the ballistic missile that was detected flying towards Turkish airspace after being launched from Iran and was neutralized. He also emphasized that any steps that could widen the conflict must be avoided. In response to U.S. President Donald Trump's warning regarding trade relations related to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, the Spanish government affirmed that it has sufficient resources to mitigate the potential impact of a trade embargo, if imposed, while emphasizing its stance of no to war. Speaking on television on date redacted, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez emphasized that Madrid will not be complicit in actions that harm the world and run counter to the country's values and interests. The second Deputy Prime Minister of Spain, Yolanda Diaz, also said that Trump's statement was unacceptable, while emphasizing that the country will not accept external pressure. Spain also noted that it is an important member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and a major exporter in the EU with long-standing trade relations with 195 countries and territories, including the United States. The Spanish government pledged to support sectors that may be affected and promote diversification of supply chains. On date redacted, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, stated that, based on the latest satellite image analysis, no damage to facilities containing nuclear material in Iran has been detected. In a social media post, the IAEA stated that satellite images show no risk of radiation release at this time. Near the Isfahan nuclear facility, damage can be seen in two buildings. In the natal area, no additional impact was detected after previously reported damage at the entrances, while no impact was detected at other nuclear facilities, including the Busir nuclear power plant. In addition, the IAEA added that the nuclear power plant in the United Arab Emirates, UAE, and research reactors in Jordan and Syria continue to operate normally. In the social media post, IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi emphasized the importance of maintaining nuclear security and safety in the region throughout the military conflict. In a notable development, Ukraine reported that it conducted a precision strike against a Russian S-400 air defense system in Belgorod, causing significant losses and significantly degrading Moscow's air defense capabilities in the area bordering Kharkiv. According to information from the National Guard of Ukraine, combat units destroyed a Russian S-400 Triumph air defense complex in a coordinated operation using attack drones. The target was identified as being located in the Belgorod province of Russia, a rear area critical in protecting the airspace for military operations along the Ukrainian border. Nearly 1-minute video released by the Ukrainian side shows UAVs approaching the air defense system, then dropping 2 precision munitions before a large explosion erupts, accompanied by a massive column of fire. However, the specific time and location of the video could not be independently verified. The operation is believed to have involved the Lazar Group combat team in coordination with the 429th Independent UAV Brigade named HESI, along with the Ukrainian Joint Forces. After aerial reconnaissance and data analysis, the location of the S-400 system was identified before the attack UAVs were dispatched to the target area. In an interview with the press, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scoten revealed on date redacted that the 15% global tariffs announced by President Donald Trump are likely to be implemented this week. The secretary also predicted that U.S. tariffs will soon return to the levels before the U.S. Supreme Court rejected the expanded tariffs imposed by President Trump. He also expressed confidence that the tariffs would return to their previous levels within 5 months. Previously, President Donald Trump announced on date redacted an increase in global import tariffs from 10% to 15% with immediate effect. Secretary Ben stated that these alternative tariffs are being applied under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. Under the provisions of this law, tariffs can only be maintained for a maximum of 150 days unless the U.S. Congress approves an extension. During that time, the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative and the U.S. Department of Commerce will conduct relevant studies, creating a basis for the government to impose additional new tariffs. Date redacted. Nepal will hold a general election across the country to elect a new parliament. This is the first election to be held since the outbreak of violent protests launched by Generation Z youth in September last year, leading to the collapse of the government in the Himalayan nation. Nearly 19 million of Nepal's 30 million people are eligible to vote today, date redacted, to elect the country's new legislature, consisting of 275 members, of which 165 candidates are directly elected and 110 are selected through a system of proportional representation. Approximately 1 million of these voters, mostly young people, have been added after last year's protests that increased calls for reform of Nepal's political system and reform of the economy to create formal jobs with better wages. The general election in Nepal will be the second election in South Asia this year after Bangladesh. Following the protests led by the younger generation, or Generation Z, leading to pressure to change the government, the motivation is distinctly different. According to Jay Nan, founder of the Nepal Democracy Foundation consulting organization, there are 3 factors that determine the outcome of any election: agenda, leadership, and organization. That is where Nepal may differ from Bangladesh. The student leaders of July 2024 in Bangladesh had a clear agenda and recognizable faces but did not have a political machine. In the general election last month in Bangladesh, the party led by young people won only 6 seats in the 300-member parliament. This shows the challenge in turning momentum in street protests into votes. For decades, Nepal, a small country nestled in the Himalayas and heavily influenced by both China and India, has been torn apart by political instability. Total, the country has had 32 changes of government since 1990, crippling the economy, which is largely based on agriculture. Millions of Nepalese have had to go abroad to find work. On date redacted, speaking at a conference in Phnom Penh, Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet pledged that the country will eliminate all online scam centers in April this year. Prime Minister Hun Manet emphasized that this is a move to strengthen the rule of law and protect the transparency of the investment environment. According to Cambodia, last week, we will